Chani wrote a book. WTF.
I can't believe it. So weird.
No, I find it weird that you didn't even tell me. Like, the way that I find out that Shani's written a book is I look on social media and she's like, I wrote a book. I was like, what the fuck?
Can I just tell you, it's not like I kept it a secret on purpose. I was actually creating a free opt-in. Like, all I was doing, it was just meant to be a little beautiful PDF file that people could download off my website for free. And it just turned into 160 pages, 31 chapters. I was like, oh, guys, I wrote a book.
So exciting. And what's even cooler is, I know we've always actually spoken about, like, writing a book's always been on your bucket list. And I remember even years ago when I first wrote mine, you were like, one day I'm going to write it, but I don't know. Like, it hadn't come to you yet what you were going to write about. And then you go to Bali and you come back and you're like, I've just written a book.
You just downloaded.
And it's not just a book. It's a book that you're passionate about, that is your zone of genius. If anyone knows Chani, and if you know how I reference her in any of my books, I call her my moon goddess queen, because you have helped me. Let's just have a moment for you, actually. Aww. You have helped me so much in the last 8 years in business. You've been my best friend. You've been my business mentor. But in the ups and the downs, something that I love that you've always gotten really good wisdom, but a lot of the wisdom that you've given me has actually been anchored in what you teach in this book. And so I'm so excited that the rest of the world gets to have a Chani in their orbit and soak up all your wisdom. Did you want to share a little bit about, obviously, what inspired you to write the book, but what the book's about?
Yeah, so where do I start? I feel like, yeah, I didn't know what I was ever going to write a book on. I just knew that I would one day. And I just needed to, like, wait for the response. Like, I knew it was just going to come to me when it was time. And before Rui was born, and we've known this privately because I've shared it with you, but I have not shared this with anyone publicly other than Matt. And yeah, I had never shared this with any of my friends, any of my, like, not even my own business coaches and mentors. Like, I always kept such a tight zip on this. But like, before Rui was born, I was at a point in my business where I was like, I want to tap out. Like, not tap out like quit, but it was more like, when I fell pregnant, I was so relieved because I was like, oh, I can have a break. Like, I think we both felt like that. We were both like, we've just been grinding for 7 years at that point. And yeah, so when Rui was born and then I transitioned back into business, like after he was born, I not only was like feeling a little bit recharged in the sense that I was able to have a sabbatical from my business, but what actually shocked me was like, oh, I'm back, but I cannot function the way I used to. Like, I cannot work the hours I used to work. I can't do what I used to do. Like, the level of effort and like just my work ethic was so intense. And then like throw a baby into the mix and the work ethic and intensity is still there, but just like a totally different version. Like, yeah, I'm working in nap windows now and with like limited sleep. We're just talking about, I did not sleep for like 11 months. So yeah, I guess like I didn't know what the book was going to be about back then because it all came to me literally in March this year. But that's where it started, like that journey of like being dissatisfied, feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, doing things just because I thought that's how you had to do them. And it's been like a journey of 3 years of like figuring that out and then having Rui and then coming back to business and having to do business another way and figuring out, well, what does that even look like now? And then like once I kind of got my flow, I just kind of last year I got into this world of like self-exploration, like who the fuck am I? And what are my gifts? What are my strengths? And I just want to lean in on that. Like that's all I want to focus on. And then we read the book 10x is better than 2x. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a message from the universe. But as well, like the other part that really inspired me to write this book is in that journey of self-growth, a question I always had, like being in network marketing is like, we've both mentored thousands of women over the last 9 years. And I never understood why like the blueprint that I use to build the business that I have, like my systems and structures, like how we deliver it to people. Like, here's what we did. This is how we built a 7-figure business. Follow it. Like, it's literally on a silver platter. And like, you give it to one person and they crush it. Like, they're flying, and you give it to another person. It's the exact same blueprint, and they just can't even get a customer. And you're just like, what? Like, it's the same blueprint. What's wrong here? So like, I've always had this question, like, why does this work for some and not for others? And it's not just in our industry. It's like across the board. Like, you might hire a coach, or you might go to an event and you're like, cool, that's the system, that's the structure I'm going to follow, and you follow it and it doesn't work for you. And it's like frustrating, because you're like, I just invested all this money and this time and it works for that person, but why isn't it working for me? And so I think my frustration got to a boiling point where I exploded when, like, I built my business to a certain point, and it was growing and it was growing and it was growing until it didn't grow anymore, until I got to a point where I was like, I'm stuck here now. Like, I can't scale this. It's not like, and it's not the system. Like, I was like, there's nothing wrong with the system or the people who are teaching me, who have gone before me. Like, it's not what they're teaching me. It's something within me. So I guess like all these experiences over the last few years like came to me, and just, it's all in a book now.
Birthed a book. And so what's the book called?
It's called The Alchemy Blueprint. And so like, when you think about the word alchemy, it's about transformation, transmutation. It's about like evolving to the next level of yourself in like the most beautiful, spiritual, mystical way. So that's what's alchemy is. And then the blueprint of your personal alchemy is like in the pages of the book.
I'm so excited for you guys to get your hands on it. I'm already pretty much read the whole thing, but then I've gone back because now I'm trying to actually apply it and like take it in bite-sized chunks, because there's 3 sections of the book, right? Do you want to talk them through like how it's designed and how it's written? Because it's actually a process. It is a blueprint. They get to take themselves through. It's not just a book you read. You actually get to apply with your own blueprint for business.
Yeah, well, I think there's like over 300 journal prompts in there. It's definitely a book you want in your hands. Yeah. Because like, you need to highlight, doggy ear, or sticky note, all those things. But yeah, so there's 3 parts to the book, and essentially like, when it was all coming to me, like all the answers to all these questions that I had, I kind of came up with like my own unique 3-step framework of like how to get through this difficult time for myself. And the first piece was connection. So connection is all about, like, before you move forward in your business, before you take any action, like, you actually need to be connected to yourself. You need to know who you are. You need to have self-trust, self-knowing. You need to back yourself, love yourself. And you just need to know yourself so friggin' well, so that when you do take action, or you are going to make a big move, or you are seeking advice from someone, or you're going to invest in a coach, and whatever it is, like, you're like, well, no, these are my strengths and my qualities. This is what I desire. This is what will nourish me. And then you make decisions on that, rather than approaching business from a space of like, I'm screwed. I don't know how to make this work. Nothing's working for me. This person seems like they're quite successful. They're teaching how they've become successful. I'm just going to pay. So rather than making decisions like that, you make decisions from a place of like, just total self-knowing. Like, you know yourself so well that you can be discerning in the decisions you make when it comes to your business. So connection, like, I love to use the astrology piece with that, because that's my zone of genius, and I think there's so much power in our natal charts. And I'm so excited to read yours in this episode, because when I was reading yours, preparing for this, I was like, oh my God, this is Lauren. And when you apply your natal chart to your business, like, there's so many modalities. There's personality tests, which we've done for years. We've used those. There's human design, gene keys, astrology. There's so many, but my wisdom and 10 years of knowledge comes from astrology. So I've weaved that into the connection piece, so you can get to know yourself through that modality to see like what lands, what feels really good, and then use that as your foundational piece.
I love it too, because in your book you show people how to read their birth chart, like what it means and what to put it into and how you get the pretty little diagram. And so I've read Chani's book and I've done this, but then I had to stop because I wanted to be surprised when you read my birth chart. But I'm excited because, like I said, in the last 9-10 years of business and friendship, a lot of the wisdom that you've shared with me of these has been grounded in astrology, and it's always been on point. Like what the so I'm excited for you to read my chart.
Oh, it's so juicy.
Okay, so that's the connection piece. That's the first bit. Then what do we do after we read our birth chart? We learn a little bit more about our strengths and our connection to us.
Yeah. So once you have that understanding of like you've gone within, then you can go outside of you, and that's when you can start to create clarity. And so I think where a lot of people get stuck in business is that they don't have a big vision. Or they have a vision, but it's not far stretched, it's comfortable, or like they don't have a vision at all. And a lot of women that I've worked with over the years, when I'm like, okay, let's vision cast, let's like, what does the dream life look like? What does the business of your dreams look like? What are you earning? How does it look? How does it feel? And they're like stifled. They're just like, I don't know. And I think it comes from a few things. I think the feeling of being paralyzed in your vision comes from disappointment of your vision not happening like in the timeline that you expect. Maybe it comes from not having like expanders and great influences in your orbit to be like, oh, actually I would love to also create that, like someone that you can emulate and be inspired by. They don't have those people in their circle of influence. I think it's also scary to dream for some people. Like it's scary to dream big because then you've got to action it. Or it's like, you know, some people are actually scared of success. And I talk about this in my book. Like I got to a point where I was like, I'm scared of more. So there's so many reasons why vision gets clouded or vision isn't clear enough. And we always hear like, have a why that makes you cry, right? And we say that all the time. But like, sometimes I call bullshit on that. And I'm like, no, it doesn't need to make you cry. You just need to be so freaking grounded and clear on what the why is. Doesn't need to make you cry. Maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. Like what if you just knew like what your top 3 goals are, what every area of life, like what the little goal is that you're striving to achieve this year. So the connection piece ties into clarity because I help you use your astrology and like what energies rule all the different 12 life areas of your natal chart to then set goals in those life areas. And that I just interweaved that because I'm just thinking about all the women that I've coached over the years who are like, you know, if I say, okay, let's talk about home life. Like, what are your top 3 goals for home life? And they're just like, I don't know, like, it'd be nice to whatever, you know, and they're just really fluffy about it. So for those who are like get really stuck on creating vision for themselves, I help you with your astrology and be like, okay, these are the planets that rule that life area for you. This is the zodiac sign that rules that life area for you. So these are the energies that you can play with. Like when you think about these energies, what excites you about a vision? And then that becomes a little bit easier to be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, my home life, you know, is ruled by Cancer, and Cancer is all about nurturing. And actually, when I think about it, yeah, I really like want to create a home that feels nurturing for my kids. Okay, well, how does that look like? And then we can like explore the depths of that. So part 2 is really powerful for people who really struggle with vision casting.
Yeah.
So part 2 is all about the clarity piece to your vision.
And then what goes after that? There's like 3 parts, isn't there?
Yeah. Then part 3 is creation. And so creation is a part of the book that I really toyed with putting in there. But it's my passion, and I was like, I have to write about this. Like I can't, like I know this stuff and I can't not share it. So creation is all about you entering creator mode. It's like where you become limitless, you become like that abundance magnet, you become like everything that you touch turns to gold. And the foundational piece of creation is understanding the 12 universal laws and principles that govern us. So these are universal laws that have been passed on for hundreds and thousands of years. Like they're in scriptures, they're in all religions, they just are spoken about differently. And it's just like how the universe functions. They're not man-made laws. They're laws that we can't defy. It's energy. It's just energetic laws. So they defy, you know, the smallest, tiniest little atoms all the way to like the planets of the universe that we don't even know exist yet. So I've interweaved the 12 universal laws because once we get an understanding on like how these work, it helps with our mindset when it comes to business. It helps when like we have challenges in life. It helps when we have to make really hard decisions. It becomes really helpful to create the best choices in like in a situation where you're like at a fork in the road. So I really love to interweave that because when you start making decisions and choices based around the laws, you become limitless. Like I feel like, yeah, it's kind of like one of them is the law of attraction, which is so mainstream and everyone knows that. But when you understand the law of attraction, like you would never, ever defy that law by thinking in a way that's opposite to the law of attraction. Because you know, like if I'm going to think about, you know, being broke and being poor and having no success and I know that's going to attract that, then I'm not going to think that. Like I know I have to think opposite. So there's 12 laws. Funnily enough, there's 12 houses, which I think is so beautiful. So the 12 houses are the 12 life areas. And in part 1, I only cover 5 cosmic bodies, I suppose, from your natal chart, but there are so many. So I didn't know where to start. That book would have been a Bible if I did all of it. So I started with 5 and then I thought, you know what? If people want to explore this in more depth with me, then they can join Alchemy, which is the 12-week mastermind that comes along with the book.
I'm so excited for people to be able to step into your world. And I know we're going to pop in the show notes the book and the Alchemy for their mastermind, because at the moment it's on Kindle. The book's on Kindle. By the time this comes out, I'll be able to get a hard copy, won't I?
It's on paperback. It's on Kindle. Yeah, it's available.
So exciting. So like I said, I have already read it and then I stopped because I was like, I want to apply it, but I wanted to be really surprised when you read my birth chart. And so like, let's do it on a podcast episode so I can be fully learning as you're learning. But also it gives people like an understanding and exposure what like astrology is and how you are applying it to your methodology and what you teach. So
yeah, it's quite unique because like a lot of people get their, you know, astrology read, like their natal chart read, or they'll follow astrology apps and things because there's certain transits happening in the sky and they'll be like, oh, you know, like we're in a Mercury retrograde. That's quite a popular one. So they'll be like, communication's going to go, you know, shit's going to hit the fan or whatever. But what I love to do is I love to use your natal chart, which is a capture of the sky and what all the planets and stars were doing at the exact moment you took your first breath. And that's like a fingerprint for you. Like you take that with you into your entire life. So knowing that these were the energies that you were born with, then integrating that into your business so that you can be like, well, actually, okay, my planet of communication, which is Mercury, is here, and that tells me this. And so this is how I'm going to communicate to my audience so I can build my business in a way that's aligned. So it's quite unique, and I'm really excited to share the technique and methodology because it's not been done. I haven't seen it been done, but I am just like reading your natal chart. I was like, oh my God, you're the perfect example of like how we can share how this works.
I've never been excited. Where do we start? What do we do?
Okay, well, I've actually written down some notes because I've got your natal chart here. I need to look at it because I didn't memorize it.
So what is the app? I know you're going to have to buy Chani's book, so then you can do this. Chani's book takes you through it and she gives you links to apps so they can go and get their birth chart. You also do readings and you're also going to support women, obviously, through the actual mastermind of taking the goals in the mastermind through all the different houses. Yeah. So it's just the starting point. It just gives you a bit of a glimpse into what it looks like and where you start with the connection piece, hey?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the elements in the book that I start you off, which is everybody knows, most people know what their sun sign is. So your sun sign, you know what your sun sign is?
No. I did. I wrote it down. Is that like my birth sign? That's not my birth sign. Yeah.
You're a Scorpio.
Scorpio.
Yeah. So the basics of Scorpio, like people usually will be like, yeah, I'm like, you know, I can have a sting to me or whatever. But when we actually explore where your sun was the moment you were born, yes, it was in Scorpio, but I want to know what house it was in, because you know how the natal chart is like 12, it looks like a pie in the sky, and it's got 12 slices. Every house is, it kind of like rules a theme of your life. So looking at your natal chart, your sun sign, yes, it's in Scorpio, but it's also in the 6th house. And the 6th house is all about health, daily routines, and service to others. So this is really interesting, right? Because your sun sign is like your personality. It's your like ego consciousness. It's how you kind of appear in the world, right? So yes, you're a Scorpio, but you're a Scorpio in the 6th house, which means that you shine light on the area, like what's really important to you is your health, which it so is. Like if you don't move your body,
I'm not a happy person.
no, you're not
It's
a
my
happy
life. My life
person.
is movement. Yeah.
Yeah. Scorpio is also a water sign. So water is very much about like, you know, you love the ocean, you love swimming, you love all of that with Stevie. Like the elements are a really big part of it as well. But knowing that water is a really big part of you and it's what like makes you shine. And then you know that health is also a really big part of you. And that's where your sun shines. And service to others as well. So I find it very interesting that your light shines in the area of health and service to others. Like, it's what you do. You
That's what
like,
we've been doing for the last 9
yeah,
years.
it's what you inspire people to do. So if you had come to me and you're like, I'm lost in my business, I don't know what direction to take, like that's probably where I'd start. I'd start with your sun sign and I'd say something like, you are meant to shine in the life area of health and service to others. It's also really important for you to be healthy and prioritize your health for you to then function in your business really well. Now, I know there's like a little bit of bias here because I know you well, but that's like you to a T.
Yeah.
Like if you are not filling your cup up first, you can't, you know, serve from your
Yeah.
overflow.
Yeah.
And also you do a really good job of inspiring other people how to be healthy, whether it's mentally, you know, you've got your psychology background or it's physically, emotionally, like that's your zone of genius. So this really helps you to distinguish like, okay, well, I'm on purpose. I'm on point. Like this is actually something that's part of my blueprint and my DNA.
I like this.
Yeah. So the sun sign is the first. Yeah. And so the second one, I just need to look at your actual picture of your birth chart because then it will remind me. Okay, so there's the big 3, which I mentioned in the book. The big 3 is your sun sign, your ascendant, or otherwise known as your rising sign, and then your moon sign. So I found it really interesting that your moon sign is also a water sign, and it's in Pisces. So it's also in the 10th house. So in my book, I also talk about, you know, how to distinguish what's in your 10th house. So the 10th house is the ruler of career, business, like what you do for a living. So let's dissect that. The moon is all about how you feel. So what this is telling me is whatever sign, which we'll get to in a minute, but whatever sign your moon is in the house of career, it's like it's really important for you to feel good in what you do in business or for your career. So, for example, there are many people out there who do a job just because it pays the bills. They hate it. It doesn't emotionally fulfill them. And they can do that. They can actually like do that their whole life and that's fine. That's okay for them. But for you, like you cannot. It is not in alignment for you to do something that makes you unfulfilled. If you're unfulfilled because of your moon sign being in the 10th house, you are so out of alignment and you could actually be like a really unhappy person. You could be really ungrateful. You could be a nasty person because your emotions are not being nourished and satisfied. So if you had come to me and you're like, again, I don't know what direction to take my business, like I'm not feeling good, and I'd see that your moon is in your 10th house, I'd be like, well, babe, like if you're not feeling good, you need to pivot. You need to get out of what you're doing because like what would make you feel good instead. So it really helps you to distinguish like, okay, I would feel so good doing X, Y, Z. Or like you could look at other aspects of your natal chart, like your midhaven, which is all about your purpose, your direction, your mission in life. So we could look there and be like, okay, where's your midhaven? Where does that sit? And then that can give us an idea of what would make you happy. And you can sit in that. And like I always say, The stars don't define us. Like this natal chart reading like isn't telling you like this is what it is and this is Bible. It's just more so a tool to use to feel into what the possibilities could be, and then you take what you love and leave what you don't. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I've just got here in my notes that because the moon governs your emotions, if you're feeling out of alignment in your business, you're going to need to come back to your moon sign and be like, right, well, what makes me feel good here, and change it and do it. Otherwise, you're not going to attract people to you. People aren't going to be excited about what you have to offer, even if it's the most amazing thing you could ever offer.
It's got to light me up from the inside out.
Yeah, because when you're in alignment, you're magnetic. So then this is the really interesting thing, right? Like, a lot of people think like, okay, this coach over here is selling a strategy that's teaching me about how to make 10K a month. Let's just say, I'm just making stuff up. Okay, and let's just say that this coach has incredible testimonials, incredible success stories. And so you're like, well, it's got to work. And then you purchase the course or you do the coaching with this person and it doesn't work. And people are like, why did that not work? If you're a moon in the 10th house, if you're not in a line, like if you're not happy in what you're doing, you're forcing, it's coming out of initiation. That's why. Like you're just not energetically aligned. You're out of alignment, which means doesn't matter what you do, what you implement, it's not going to work. And this is like closing the loop back on that question about what helped me write the book, when I was like, why is it that I've coached thousands of women over the years and they've followed a blueprint that I've shared with them and it's not worked for them? And now I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if they were out of alignment. Like they just weren't in alignment. And I used to think it was a cop-out. And people were like, I just don't feel aligned. I used to be like, that's a cop-out. Like, come on, you can make this work. And now I'm like, actually, that was really bad advice.
And so they've got to find what would light them up. And that's where would you go from there? You said you're something haven?
Yeah, so your midhaven, and looking at your midhaven, let me just have a quick look-see. Your midhaven is in the 11th house and it's ruled by Aries. So Aries is all about leadership, spotlight. It's a fiery sign. And the midhaven is all about your purpose in this lifetime, like what you're meant to do. So first and foremost, that tells me that you are born to be a leader. You're meant to shine. You're meant to lead people. You're meant to be fiery in your leadership. And that's what you are. Like,
I finally have a permission.
It's your permission slip to be like, you know, if people say to you, oh, there's a bit too much, Loz, or you're a bit too blunt, or you're a bit too masculine, like Aries is the most masculine sign there is.
Yeah.
So you're meant to be like that in your leadership.
Yeah.
And when you're not, you're out of alignment. So if you're trying to be someone you're not, if you're trying to be like diplomatic and harmonious, which would be like a Libra sign, let's just say, which is a very, like all about balance, like that's not you, babe. Like,
no,
it's not you. So stop trying to be like that. So your midhaven is all about leadership for you anyway. It's about fire, but it's also in the house of networking, partnerships, and friendships. So for you, like I'm all about intuitively reading it. Like I don't like to, in my book, I do encourage people to use like ChatGPT or a book on astrology to figure it out. But for me, like I don't like to personally use that just because of, I guess, the wisdom that I have that I've learned over the years. I just like to intuitively feel into it. So when I like intuitively feel into your midhaven in Aries in the 11th house, you're also designed here to lead your friendship groups. Like you're meant to have friendships that you can be led, but that you lead them as well. And when I think about you as a human, like we can sit in a sauna for 3 hours and I can be asking you for advice and you can be leading me, and that's your superpower.
Yeah.
Like I think about how many times like I've come to you and I'm like, I don't really know what to do, and you've given me the strategy or the tips or the advice, and I'm like, yeah, like you're meant to do that. So that's what your midhaven is all about. It's really about, for you, leading people with your intensity.
I love that. It hits home, and it's so funny because I know we've spoken openly about like our own evolutions this year, And that's been my biggest lesson this year. I know I spoke to Chani. I even invested in a coach that I spoke about. I think my biggest takeaway from that coach, and I didn't realize that's what I was going in for. And we were talking about this earlier. You don't always get what you need. You don't always get what you want. You get what you need. And it's like I was waiting for a permission slip for someone who's gone before me to show me it's actually okay to lead in a masculine way. Like, you have feminine leadership in how you lead women, but when you're like, I am very fiery and I am very direct and I am very activating, and women have to be, there's certain type of women who want that. I know I want to be led like that.
Yeah.
But for so long, like I said, I was trying not to be so intense, and I was like trying to not dumb myself down, but like dilute myself.
Yeah.
And then it's like, because I was trying to soften myself to please everybody else, I felt out of alignment. And it was really interesting. So I'm like, that's it. I want permission to just lead with intensity. Like, that's the best way to put it.
And it's actually so funny. When I was reading your natal chart, I was like, that is why you chose that specific coach. Because I remember you saying to me, I don't know, I just like, I need like a woman who's like in her, like she's fiery and she's like, yes, she's masculine. I need that type of leadership. And looking at your natal chart, I'm like, yeah, you need that type of leadership.
It's like, I don't need fluff. Like, I know where I'm going. I'm just going to say how it is. I don't need filler words. I'm going to tell it to you straight.
Yeah.
And I love, even like you and I have been talking intimately behind the scenes, because something I've really always been called to. I'm interested if this comes up anywhere else in my birth chart, but like, how I like working intimately with women. Like, as much as I love leading women, what fills up my cup is those one-on-one conversations in the sauna. And
let me have a look.
So I was like, yeah, like I like the leading piece, but I like leading in private and supporting women one-on-one in private, not big things. Okay.
I didn't read this before the episode, but I have to talk about this.
Okay.
I'm so glad you brought this up. So the 7th house is all about one-on-one relationships, right? It's a fire sign for you. It's in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is ruling your 7th house of intimate relationships. You have not only your North Node in your 7th house, which I'll explain in a minute what that is, but you also have your Mercury and your Venus there.
I'm like, what does this mean?
No wonder you love one-on-one so much. Okay, so let me break this down. Your North Node, the best way to describe it is like it's your North Star. Like, it's just it's like you're the moth to the light, right? So that's the first thing. Like, I would say no wonder you love one-on-one and intimate relationships. Like, that's your superpower, because that's just like what you hone in on. That's your thing. That's your zone of genius. That's your superpower. So yes, lean in on that. Like, don't ignore that. If someone says to you like, no, you need to like serve the many. No, you're not meant to serve the many. Like, you are, but in an intimate setting. What did I say was there? Venus. Your Venus is there, which is and how Mars. You activate money, and your Mercury. Okay, so Mercury is the planet of communication. So the way that you communicate beautifully is in a one-on-one setting. It's like the way that you can deliver your message and teach what it is that you're meant to teach in this lifetime is in intimate settings. It's not meant to be in big groups. It's not meant to be in like that setting. It's like a fire sign. Like, so this means like, again, like this is Sagittarius is all about, if you think about the artwork for Sagittarius, it's always like it's a centaur, which is half human, half horse, right? So she's a unicorn. She's wild. She's crazy. She's not human. She's unique, right? So that's where your Mercury lies, which means like that's the energy that you bring to your one-on-one communication, because it's in your 7th house. Does that make sense to you? So if you think about the Sagittarius, it's like they've always got like a crossbow and arrow, and they're always just like aiming for the horizon, and they run. Like, she's running. She's like, it's like nonstop goal setting. Like, I'm so like obsessed with where I'm headed. Like, that's the centaur. So that means your Mercury being there, like that's your superpower in your communication. The way that people are going to learn from you is like with that energy. Your Venus is how you activate money. It's also like a little bit about aesthetics and stuff as well. But if we talk about how you make money, like the way that you would activate incredible wealth and income to you in the work that you do, it's in one-on-one settings. And it's in that, again, like Sagittarius fire leadership role in that intimate relationship sort of setting. So if you were to have to pick between a business where you are doing like group coaching calls and like, yeah, that style versus like the one-on-one, or even like, it doesn't have to be one-on-one, even like 3 people. But something's telling me it's more one-on-one for you. Like, that's where you're going to make big money.
It's funny because intuitively I know that. And you're talking about the whole alignment piece. I'm like, because I'm lucky. I've got so many amazing girlfriends in my orbit, and Chani being one of them, and even my other girlfriend, Anna, who's on the podcast, we're talking about like they love, like you love group calls, and we talk about what brings you joy, and we keep coming back, and because they can't get to me, because I'm like, I just want to work with 1 or 2 at a time, like high level, high executive women. I'm in your corner. It's high energy, it's intensity, it's like, it's fire, it's focus. They're like, nah, that nothing. And you're like, nothing, I don't want to do that. I'm like, that's what I don't want groups. I just want one-on-one. So I love it. Intuitively, I know that. So this stuff works. This stuff's on point.
And people say astrology is bullshit. It's so not.
No. And just to prove this, if you read my book, The Surrender Project, you'll see there were so many things that were going on in my life at the time. And I cite intimate conversations that me and Chani had. And she was like reassuring me what was happening in the moon at the time. And everything that she said, it's cool because when I wrote that book, you go on a journey with me, and everything that she said came into fruition later in the chapters. So you can kind of see that it wasn't just something that was said. It was like that stuff actually happened and came into fruition. So it was spot on.
It's magic.
It's science.
It's science, but it
spiritual side of science.
Yeah. That's why I love it. And that's why I love to interweave it into the whole like creating your own blueprint for women who are lost in the direction that they need to go forward, or they're lost in their vision, or they're lost in what's next, or maybe they're like me, they've built an incredibly successful business but they're stuck, right? Because we all get there. Using this modality has helped me so much. Like, it's brought so much joy and satisfaction to how I operate in my business, and I'm like, I can't not teach this now. Like, this is how I function from now on. And this is how I teach women how to operate from now on, because it's game changing.
And it's so exciting, like you said, like you're going to, not only the book, but if these women decide they want to work with you intimately in your mastermind, like they have that connection piece, where they have that awareness. Maybe if they've lost that connection to themselves, they're going to find that. And then from there, you're going to actually help them stretch their vision, and not only then stretch it, but create what they want in all those different areas of life too.
Yeah. And leaning into the whole, like you love one-on-one. I don't. Like, I'm not good at one-on-one. What I am good is at activating a small, intimate group of people by connecting everybody, and then teaching in a group setting. Like, and so when I understood, like, that's actually my superpower isn't one-on-one. Like, if I'm one-on-one, I'm depleted and you don't get the best of me. But if I have like several energies to work off in a space, whether it's on Zoom or in person, I'm fucking activated. Like, I'm on fire. You can't stop me. Like, it's like where my downloads come from. So I can't ignore that now, which means I can't offer one-on-one unless, like, I would offer one-on-one to someone who is so incredibly aligned with my values. And yeah, like, I think there'd be like exception to the rule. There's definitely an exception to the rule there. And I've had conversations with people who are like, do you do one-on-one? And I'm like, no, I don't. And then I've had another person ask, and I'm like, for you, yes, but only because energetically I need to be in alignment. I don't want to charge someone for one-on-one if I'm not going to be activated for them. It's a waste of money for them. Yeah. But what I can do is say, hey, like, here's where I am activated, and here's where you're going to get the best of me. It's an intimate group circle, and it's freaking fire. Like, and I'm just so excited for the women who do join Alchemy, because I know their brains are going to blow.
I'm excited for them. Well, congratulations to you, my darling. I'm so proud of you. You have a book, and it's a beautiful book, by the way. And of course, I'm sure, I know you speak about it in your podcast Worthy as well, but like a big part of your birth chart is making sure everything's pretty.
Yes, aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. It's my Venus and my Taurus.
And her book is absolutely gorgeous. So make sure you get a copy of Shan's book.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that needs to be read from my birth chart? Is there anything that I'm missing? What would be the last thing? Is it a last spicy part, or anything that you feel like I need to know?
Let's have a look. I'm just reading your signs now. No, I feel like we've covered like the main parts for you. I'm really happy we got to speak about your 7th house. That wasn't on my notes to talk about, but that's really powerful. Yeah, I just think, actually your 2nd house is pretty interesting. It's ruled by Cancer. You've also got Mars in there. So Cancer is like, this is so you to a T. If I was to explain someone with Cancer that rules their second house, like you need emotional stability with your wealth. So the second house is all about wealth, finances, property, resources. So whatever lies in your second house really tells you about what energy helps you in that life area. So with Cancer there, like you are very intuitive with your money, which I know. I feel like I'm being really biased here, but I would say this to you if I didn't know you. Really intuitive with like the investment decisions you make. Like you really need to feel into it. But with Mars there, you can also make quite rash decisions. Like you can be like, oh my God, I just found out about this thing. I want to invest in there now, which can actually be like a shadow self of you. So what I would suggest to do is really lean on your Cancer. Like if there ever is an opportunity for you to invest in something or like learn about a new way to create wealth, like feel into it, like really learn about it. Like I'm thinking back to when you really wanted to buy a house. Do you remember? This was like...
Was it the start of the year when we got back from Europe?
Yeah, you got back from Europe and you were like, I just want to buy a house. Like I just want to get back in the property market because you have like got all that money sitting in the bank because you sold your house. And your feelings and emotions were like, I just want a home. I just want to feel like I'm home and I want to raise my babies in my home. And you were very emotional about it. And Dan was very like pragmatic and he was very like logical and, you know, the masculine, and you were very feminine because you were like the home. That's Cancer, right?
Yeah.
Cancer is all about like nurturing in the home. So because you've got Mars there, which can be quite like assertive and aggressive when it comes to decision making, I remember you were like, Dan, listen to me, I want to buy a house. And he was like, no. And you were like, no. Anyway, and then obviously like you felt into it and really spoke about it and you like regulated your emotions about it and you realized like actually it's going to be really wise for us to use this money to buy an investment property. Right? So you like, that's you in alignment. When you like, yes, you're allowed to like have your moment of tantrums when it comes to that stuff.
I feel like they even played out even earlier this year. We both got an opportunity to maybe get involved in another business. Remember how I feel like that was the initial thing too. I was like, oh, like maybe we should like, and then we're like, yeah, like because we're both hungry people and we're like we see opportunity, but then it was like then we both went into the intuition. I was like, I'm like, I don't need to know what it's going to return or what the profits are or what like I just intuitively like it's just not right.
So that's you in alignment. And you know what that means? It means that you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because you were in alignment. It doesn't matter whether you joined or didn't join that business opportunity. If you joined it because out of like a rash decision, you would have been out of alignment and it wouldn't have worked for you.
And I feel like I know that straight away because you know how after a decision, even if you don't feel like you've made the right decision, you keep thinking about like as soon as that decision was made, I didn't think about it again. I was like, that intuitively just like peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my advice to you would be whenever you make or are making decisions around wealth creation or what you're investing in, or even like how you're going to make money, like, you know, within your business, give yourself time to respond to all of the emotions that come with it. And use your intuition because Cancer is very intuitive.
And use Chani, my moon magic queen. No, I feel like I'm going to do that with anyway. Sometimes I'm so fiery. Before I say anything, I send it to Chani too, and she's like, sit with it. I'm like, okay. I'll sit with it. And then I'm glad. I'm so glad that I do. So much wisdom.
Does that land?
It does.
Cool.
It's like you said, it's all those stuff. It'd be interesting if you didn't know me, but because you know me, like we know that's all on point. I think most of you guys listening to this probably have got to know me over the years on the podcast or in our community. So you know that's me anyway.
Yeah. I'd be interested to do that with someone who I have no idea about. I've been doing like these money activation reports I only do 3 a month because they take a lot of time and I love doing them, but I'm also like time. So yeah, I have been doing these money activation reports for complete strangers and the feedback I've been getting is like, oh my God, that was so on point. So I'm like, yes, I know this stuff works.
Yeah.
Of course it does. It's magic. It's science and it's magic.
It's amazing. So I'm excited.
Thanks, honey.
Grab the book if you haven't already. The book will be out. The actual hard copy will be out by the time this goes live. So treat yourself to a beautiful book, not only to see, but to read.
Yeah, it's in the show notes.